This is a good idea. It was advanced by both Republicans and Democrats in this body and the other body, and I hope that we receive a yes vote for it here today. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Webster reserves. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Hastings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased at this time to yield to my good friend, the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Richardson. 2 minutes.
Gentlelady from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the conference report, H.R. 4348, the Surface Transportation Extension Act, which provides funding for the federal aid program through fiscal year 2014 at current funding levels. Among other things in the conference report, it makes key investments in our nation's infrastructure critical to goods movement, which is specifically very important to me in my district, and the additional $500 million that's there for projects of national and regional significance. The conference report calls for also a national freight strategic plan, and it encourages states to develop state freight plans, to incentivize those states to invest in freight projects, policies, and to make sure that we can make progress in that area that's long avoided us. Now, Mr. Speaker, in recent days, some members have come down and expressed a desire for the federal government to adopt a national freight policy. As a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee representing the 37th Congressional District, I represent a very intensive transportation district, and that's why last March I introduced a bill, H.R. 1122, the Freight Focus Act. That particular legislation was supported very much across the aisle, included support of the American Association of Port Authorities, the Trucking Association, operating engineers, and many more. My Freight Focus Act was to establish an Office of Freight Planning within the Office of the new Assistant Secretary, and many of those ideas have been incorporated. As we look forward at this bill, it certainly is not what we had hoped for. We had hoped for maybe more, something like a 5-year reauthorization would be helpful. But at this point, given our limitations, the key things that I'd like to see us focus on is to ensure that there is a strong freight plan, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to make sure that that is implemented. Further, my legislation created goods movement, a trust fund. That's something that's not addressed in this legislation but should be considered as we go forward. As you can see, there are sound freight policies. I've been a leader of that and working with Chairman Mica and others, and I look forward to us bringing forward not only this bill but many more to come, which will put Americans back to work. I thank you, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Webster.
Mr. Speaker, I'm prepared to close, and I reserve my time.
Gentlemen, that I'm prepared to close and we'll go forward. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that we're here today considering this hodgepodge measure. For too long, my Republican colleagues have used this House to further their partisan agenda rather than the interests of the nation. So it's no surprise that once again we're rushing to the floor to take care of business that should have been taken care of months ago. Time and again, when given the choice between reasonable bipartisan measures and blatantly partisan policies, Republicans have chosen to pander to the extreme wing of their conference. They've passed bills they know will be dead on arrival in the Senate, pursued legislation with no hope of being signed into law, and attached controversial measures to otherwise innocuous matters. While Republicans are busy playing politics, Americans have been wondering how they're going to get a job, put a roof over their head, or afford to pay for college or food. Though I'm glad these measures are finally being brought to the floor, our constituents deserve better. We didn't even, on this measure, 600 pages, the dead of night last night, 5 measures put together under one, and we received the CBO score just a few minutes ago. Most members in this body don't have any idea what's in this bill, how much it costs. This Republican tactic of saying no to everything is dragging down our nation, slowing our recovery, and threatening the survival of important and necessary government programs. There's serious work to do here in the House of Representatives, and my and your constituents can't afford to sit around and watch this spectacle. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Webster, is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said during the previous debate on short-term transportation extensions, our national infrastructure is aging. Stable construction jobs are lacking. Unemployment lingers about 8% annually, or nationally, and a little over 9% in Florida. Regrettably, that remains the case today, many short-term extensions later. However, unlike the past, the House and Senate have come together to offer a glimmer of certainty to try to address these problems. A long-term, multi-year highway reauthorization is critical to rebuilding our nation's infrastructure, reforming antiquated and inefficient transportation programs, strengthening our economy, and creating jobs. A long-term authorization also provides for certainty and stability necessary for transportation industry to contain costs through long-term planning. This agreement, while not perfect, is long overdue. It will begin to chip away at the bloated bureaucracy and which defines our federal transportation system. It will create jobs, and it will promote economic activity in our local communities, all without adding to the deficit. For these reasons, I ask my colleagues to join me in favor of this rule. I yield back the balance of my time. I move the previous question.
The gentleman yields back. Objection. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purposes does the gentlewoman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I now rise to a question of the privileges of the House and offer the resolution previously noticed.
The clerk will report the resolution.
Whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has interfered with the work of an independent agency and pressured an administrative law judge of the National Labor Relations Board by compelling the production of documents related to an ongoing case, something independent experts said could seriously undermine the authority of those charged with enforcing the nation's labor laws, and which the House Ethics Manual discourages by noting that federal courts have nullified administrative decisions on grounds of due process and fairness towards all of the parties when congressional interference with ongoing administrative proceedings may have been unduly influenced the outcome. Whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has politicized investigations by rolling back long-standing bipartisan precedents, including by authorizing subpoenas without the concurrence of the ranking member or a committee vote, by refusing to share documents and other information with the ranking member, and restricting the minority's right to call witnesses at hearings. Whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has jeopardized an ongoing criminal investigation by publicly releasing documents that his own staff has admitted were under court seal. Whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has unilaterally subpoenaed a witness who is expected to testify at an upcoming federal trial, despite long-standing precedent and objections from the Department of Justice that such a step could cause complications at a trial and potentially jeopardize a criminal conviction. Whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has engaged in a witch hunt through the use of repeated, incorrect, and uncorroborated statements in the committee's Fast and Furious investigation. And whereas the chair of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has chosen to call the Attorney General of the United States a liar on national television without corroborating evidence, and has exhibited unprofessional behavior which could result in jeopardizing an ongoing committee investigation into Operation Fast and Furious. And now therefore be it resolved that the House of Representatives disapproves of the behavior of the chair for interfering with ongoing criminal investigations, insisting on a personal attack against the Attorney General of the United States, and for calling the Attorney General of the United States a liar on national television without corroborating evidence thereby discredit to the integrity of the House.
The resolution qualifies. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition? Mr. Webster.
Mr. Speaker, I move to lay the resolution on the table.
The question is on the motion to lay the resolution on the table. Those in favor would signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The motion is not adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider.
Mr. Chairman,
The gentlewoman from Texas is
I
recognized.
ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays have now been requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8, Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to table will be followed by a 5-minute vote on the adoption of House Resolution 717. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Well, just prior to that, the House had been debating the rule for the conference report covering 3 measures that would maintain student loan interest rates for 3.4% for 1 year, extend federal highway and mass transit programs through 2014, and would continue the National Flood Insurance Program for 5 years. A vote on that rule coming up next. That'll be a 5-minute vote. An hour of debate will follow. But as you saw, Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas bringing forth a privilege resolution which essentially disapproves of the behavior of Representative Darrell Issa, the chairman of the Oversight Committee. A question of privilege is an issue that a member says violates either the House rules on safety, dignity, or integrity of its proceedings, or the rights and reputation or conduct of its members. This is a 15-minute vote, and again, this will be followed by the 5-minute vote on the rule for the conference report. That will be coming up next. Well, coming up next during this vote, we're going to bring you some of our conversation from this morning's Washington Journal, all of it reacting to the Supreme Court's 5-4 decision yesterday, upholding the vast majority of President Obama's health care law, the law passed in 2010 by Congress. And a reminder, too, that the House will once again vote on repeal of that law. Republican leaders set that date for July the 11th. But this morning on Washington Journal, we were joined by a number of House members, including Kathy McMorris Rodgers, the Republican Conference Vice Chair. The House is voting on a motion to table a privileged resolution by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. It's a 15-minute vote. It'll be followed by the vote on the rule for the conference report, combining three measures. One that would maintain student loan interest rates at 3.4% for a year. It would extend federal highway and mass transit programs through 2014 and would continue national flood insurance for 5 years. That vote is next. Up next, though, during this vote, some of the conversation from this morning's Washington Journal on yesterday's Supreme Court health care ruling.
Instead of celebrating, President Obama should recognize the inherent problems with his law and work with Republicans to find better solutions. What's a major example of an inherent problem with the law that you see?
Well, it is the problem, the biggest problem with this law is how it's a big government solution to one of the most personal aspects of our lives, and that being health care and the health care decisions that we make for ourselves as well as those that we care about. And although the court ruled yesterday that the law is constitutional in their eyes, it does not mean that it is a good law, and that's where we're going to continue as Republicans. We are committed more today than ever in repealing this law and replacing it with reforms that will ensure that we have quality, affordable health care, that we address what's driving the cost of health care. The Affordable Care Act is not addressing the cost of health care for individuals, for families, for doctors, for hospitals, for the government, and we need reforms that will do that. But the Affordable Care Act it's a big government solution. Even Chief Justice Roberts admitted when he was talking about it in relationship to the Commerce Clause that it's redefining the role of the individual with the government. It's estimated that 20 million Americans will lose their employer health insurance. Average premiums continue to increase, $2,100 per family. Businesses are finding it harder to hire because of this law. It was passed 2 years ago over the will of the American people, and today more people oppose it than ever.
Well, I want to get to calls because we only have you with us for about 10 minutes, but I should tell people that you were one of 2 designates of the Speaker to be in the courtroom yesterday. What was the experience like? What were your observations?
Well, yes, it was kind of pinching myself being in the courtroom yesterday. As Chief Justice Roberts was reading the decision, most of us had been focused on the Commerce Clause and answering the question whether or not Congress had appropriately used the Commerce Clause. And he went through this detailed explanation as to how the Commerce Clause, this was not a proper use of the Commerce Clause, that the Commerce Clause is for regulating, but it cannot compel people to do certain things. And I thought, wow. He's ruling that the individual mandate is unconstitutional, and he did as it related to the Commerce Clause. However, then he proceeded into the tax provisions, and although President Obama had said this is not a tax, and the proponents of the legislation had said it was not a tax, Chief Justice Roberts and the majority of the court said it had the characteristics of a tax, therefore it is a tax, and therefore under the tax provisions they ruled that the law stood. So it was kind of a, you kind of went back and forth, and ultimately I was quite stunned by the decision.
Representative Rogers' family has a small business. She is a graduate of Pensacola Christian College, executive MBA from the University of Washington, and was a legislator in Olympia, her home state, before coming to Congress. And we're going to get to calls for her. First up is Chicago. Carl is the Democrat. You're on, Carl. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. How are you, Representative Rogers? I saw you when the Republicans came out and gave the press conference. I think you were the first spokesperson. I want to say this, and this is not, I don't mean this in a personal manner. Your party has become one of a bunch of petulant children. I've watched you guys, and you basically everything is no. This health care came about through a democratic process. The Republicans were invited and wanted to aid. The president wanted to have them involved in this. Parts of this health care bill are Republican ideas. You didn't, it passed in the Congress, the president signed it You said, hey, we're not happy with that. We're going to come in here, the next Congress, and repeal it. You couldn't do that. Well, we're going to, go to the courts. Well, it's been held up by the courts. Now you're saying, well, we're going to repeal it again. I listened to you guys, and yesterday you didn't offer anything concerning the people who do not have health care coverage now.
Carl, I'm going to jump in. Thank you. Representative Rogers?
Not one Republican supported this health care bill. Not one Republican in the House, not one Republican in the Senate. It's really unprecedented that a law of this magnitude would pass without any Republicans. The President took the approach because he had overwhelming majorities in both the House and the Senate that he didn't need to work with the Republicans. And unfortunately, most Americans also believe that this is a bad bill. The polling at the time that the law passed showed that the majority of Americans oppose this bill. And as they see what is in this bill, as this bill is being implemented in the 2 years since it passed, more Americans today oppose this bill than they did 2 years ago. And yes, we believe, we thought it was unconstitutional. The court did not agree. However, the court did speak yesterday, but they're not going to have the final say. The American people will have the final say in November. And it's another example where elections do have consequences. The people that are elected to represent the people all across this country to come here and vote on the laws of this land, the elections do have consequences, and they will this fall more than ever.
Next up for the Congresswoman is Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Deborah is a Republican there. Good morning.
Good morning. Ms. Rogers, I am a responsible Republican voter, and you are lying to the American public. And let me tell you why. Because they have showed many polls on MSNBC that there are more Republicans now who like this bill because it is working for them. People who have pre-existing conditions, children with pre-existing conditions, kids that can get on their parents' insurance. Stop lying to the American people, because my party's going to go down in November, and you're all going to be voted out. I can guarantee it, because I speak to Republicans across this country, and they are sick and tired of your lies and this crap about.
All right, Deborah, thank you. We'll stop it there.
I could show you some polls that show otherwise. The health care and the control of health care belongs in the hands of individuals and families and their physicians. And unfortunately, the President's approach has been a big government approach to health care. And the control of health care, control of health care decisions in America should be with individuals and their families. They're going to make the best decisions. I have a son with special needs. I understand the importance of addressing the issues related to pre-existing conditions. And I am committed to those solutions. And the Republicans have solutions related to pre-existing conditions, the high-risk pools, and that is one of those areas that there was some agreement actually moving forward. The Republicans are not proposing, that is part of the solution that we would like to move forward.
The caller does mention the popularity of some of the early implemented provisions, including the extension to age 26, portability and the like. Do you concede that those are popular?
Oh, yes, but I would argue that the polling overall shows that when people are asked about this health care bill, they oppose this bill. Large majorities, up until the court ruled yesterday, I haven't seen polling since then, but it was 65% believe that the bill was unconstitutional. They would like to see Congress repeal this bill and have the opportunity to restart on health care. Millions of Americans are without health insurance, and we need to take steps to address that issue. We need to improve access. We need to address what's driving the cost of health care. The Obamacare does not do that, though. It's a false promise that is being given to the American people, and that is why the Republicans are committed more today than ever that we are going to repeal this bill, we're going to get it off the books, and we're going to press the restart button, working with the American people, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. There is a better approach to health care reform.
What do you see as the legislative pathway to repeal? I know there's a vote in the House coming up in mid-July, but walk us through how a successful repeal would work.
The House will be taking action in mid-July to repeal this bill, get it off the books. Ultimately, largely the future of this legislation is going to come down to November and who is elected in November. Many portions of the President's health care bill do not take effect until 2014. That's another interesting note about this bill, is that he prolonged most of the impact. So we do have some more time to work to repeal this bill. Under the tax provisions that the court cited, people are exploring then whether or not we could repeal those provisions in the Senate through budget reconciliation. That only requires 51 votes and is not subject to a filibuster. So there may be some opportunities as we move forward to pursue repealing this bill or repealing at least the taxes in this bill through budget reconciliation. You know, the President was not honest with the American people. He said this was not a tax. We're finding out now that it was a tax. It's actually the largest tax in America's history, and I think as Americans continue to see what's in this bill, they are not going to be pleased.
Bettendorf, Iowa, the last for Congresswoman Rogers. Lewis, independent. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I've been battling for health care since 1970 when I became a paraplegic, had workman's comp, and I was the worst rated in 1970 and still is. So I know what it is to fight for health care, and I'm more concerned about the fact that the reports are the federal government's going to cut way back on its Medicaid support, and that we're not going to have 65% Medicaid support from the federal government and 35% from the state of Iowa. We're going to have probably the reverse. That's going to have every state in the United States being in a vulnerable situation, probably going to have to file bankruptcy, just like Stockton, California. There's no way you can have this kind of a change in the coverage, and I'm all for everybody being covered.
All right, Lewis, thank you so much. Appreciate your call. Representative Rogers?
Yes, and that should be our goal for everyone to have coverage. The problem, as you pointed out, is in many of these programs, the government has promised certain coverage, but even today, when you look at the government health care programs that we have in America, look at Medicare, look at Medicaid, look at TRICARE for our military, and when you try to find a provider, a hospital, a doctor who will take a patient that brings in the Medicare card or the Medicaid card or the TRICARE, it's harder and harder. In my home in eastern Washington, in Spokane, Washington, it is next to impossible to find a provider right now who will take a patient on Medicare because the government is not reimbursing for the actual cost of delivering that service. They say it sounds good that we're going to cover all these people, but they're not paying the cost of it, and the providers more and more are saying we just can't afford to do it. So that's where I say it's a false promise that the government is giving to the people to say, oh yeah, we're going to cover all of this. And then and so you really don't have access. Even though you might have the card, you don't have access, or you have to wait to get to see a doctor. And I'm hearing stories today, more and more, where those that are on Medicare, Medicaid, TRICARE are having to wait weeks, months to see certain providers. That's the wrong direction. I want to empower the individuals. I want to give the individuals and their families the ability to go out there, choose what plans are best for themselves. You know, not everyone needs the same kind of health care and the same kind of health insurance. And as much as we can empower individuals and families to make those decisions, they're going to make better decisions than the government can ever make for them.
Representative McMorris Rogers from this morning's Washington Journal. The House will vote on repealing the health care law on July the 11th. They are off next week for the July 4th holiday. Mitt Romney says the Supreme Court's health care decision has injected, quote, greater urgency in the presidential contest. He spoke to donors in New York City this morning. His campaign reports he's raised more than $4 million online since the court's ruling on Thursday. Just a program reminder, too, C-SPAN covering a couple of discussions and analysis of the court's ruling, one underway now at the Heritage Foundation. That's on C-SPAN 3, and later we're also covering one at the Georgetown Law Center. And both of those will be in our video library. On the House floor, the first of two votes here on a motion to table a resolution raising a question of privileges of the House brought forth by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas, which says in part that the House of Representatives disapproves of the behavior of the chair of the Oversight Committee, Representative Darrell Issa, for interfering with an ongoing criminal investigations insisting on personal attack against the Attorney General of the United States and for calling the Attorney General of the United States a liar on national television without corroborating evidence. 15-minute vote. The following vote will be on the rule for the conference report, a package of 3 bills maintaining student loan interest rates at 3.4% for a year, extending federal highway and mass transit programs through 2014, and continuing the National Flood Insurance Program for another 5 years. Still some votes left to happen in this vote, and while we wait for the vote to wrap up, more from this morning's Washington Journal, this time with Jan Schakowsky, a Democrat member of the Health Subcommittee.
Were you surprised by the outcome of the court?
I was hoping that Chief Justice Roberts would look at the chaos that would be created first if they overturned the bill, the law, but also looking at his legacy, the opportunity to make sure that millions and millions of Americans were able to get health insurance. I think that kind of landmark bill, I thought he might resist overturning it.
What work needs to be done? So many people calling in today feel very confused about the scope of this legislation, how it affects them personally. Can you talk about what really will happen for Americans next?
Well, first of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity now, I mean for all of us, to talk about what's really in this bill. And what it means is that women will no longer face discrimination. Being a woman right now is like having a pre-existing condition because we pay about 48% more for our health care. That's gone. We're helping seniors be able to afford their prescription drugs. Millions of seniors, even right now, are paying an average of $600 less for their prescription drugs because we're closing that donut hole. Young people able to stay on their parents' policies until they're 26 years old. Beyond that, though, when the bill kicks in, no pre-existing condition will disqualify someone from getting the health care they need. This is absolutely huge. We're going to find that all the people that have been excluded from the health care system are now going to be able to get coverage at an affordable rate. And I think that that's going to lift the burden of health insecurity, the worry, off of American shoulders.
Going to take a call for you. We've been at this since 7 this morning, so our viewers have been in deep conversation about the court's finding yesterday. Let's hear from Kathy, Democrat in Chicago.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. My question for Representative Schakowsky is, I read 600 pages of the House bill.
Yes.
In it, there are death panels. There are, for the very old and for the very young, they're not going to be able to get care. This is an overreach of government. Government has no business in our health care. There's even more things in it. And the Senate version, have you even read the Senate version? That's even more complex and with more things. Did you know that people from U.S. territories who do not pay federal taxes will be covered by this health care bill on the backs of American taxpayers?
Actually, right now, if you're insured, you're paying up to $4,800 a year in additional health insurance costs. The average is about $1,000 a year for people who are not insured, because we don't leave them on the side of the road if they're in an accident. We take care of them sometimes for life. So all those people who are uninsured are a cost to you right now. Those people now will be part of the program. They'll pay what they can, but they'll get insurance. So actually, we're going to see the cost of health care for you and others who are insured now should actually go down over time.
There are a number of comments that are bouncing around the internet with your name attached to it, suggesting or discussing the unionization of doctors in this country. Is that something that you have spoken about and that you support?
Well, you know, it was sort of an odd question that the Breitbart reporter asked me yesterday. This has nothing to do whatsoever with Obamacare and the now what is the law of the land. So I don't know really where it came up. But doctors in many places, including at the Cook County Hospital in Chicago, do have a union. Certainly around the world, Israel, which has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, their doctors are unionized, and I'm sure in many other countries.
Motion is laid on the table. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is on the vote on the adoption of the House Resolution 717, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 142, House Resolution 717, Resolution providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 5856, making appropriations for the Department of Defense for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes, providing for consideration of the bill H.R. 6020, making appropriations for financial services and general government for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2013, and for other purposes, and providing for consideration of the conference report to accompany the bill H.R. 4348 to provide an extension of federal aid, highway safety, motor carrier safety, transit, and other programs funded out of the Highway Trust Fund, pending enactment of a multi-year law reauthorizing such programs and for other purposes.
The question is an adoption of the resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The House working its way to a Friday getaway and a week in their districts next week for the July 4th holiday. This a vote on the rule for consideration of a package of 3 bills which would maintain student loan interest rates at 3.4% for a year, extend federal highway and mass transit programs through 2014, and continue the National Flood Insurance Program for 5 years. They will have an hour of debate on that. Also coming up, they'll finish up work on amendments to the Transportation and Housing Spending Bill for fiscal year 2013. This is a 5-minute vote, and while this vote continues, more House member reaction to yesterday's Supreme Court ruling on the health care law.
The Progressive Caucus supported single payer. What is your reaction now that the law has been ratified by the Supreme Court and it's based on the private insurance delivered system?
Well, I'm extraordinarily pleased with the Supreme Court ruling. I supported the Affordable Care Act, and yes, you know, there were those of us who wanted to go a little bit further, and as you could hear by your previous guest, there were those who didn't want to go at all, but nonetheless, we have, I think, the first step after almost 100 years, really, in terms of really moving our country to providing universal health care. So for tens of millions of Americans, they're going to be able to access health care whether they're in West Philadelphia or Fairbanks, Alaska. They're going to be able to access health care. Kids with pre-existing conditions can't be denied health care. Adults won't be able to be denied health care. And I thought the court's reasoning was fascinating. You know, in any government budgeting class 101, there's a little line where it says taxes, fees, and other revenues, which includes fines and user fees. And the court said, look, you know, just like any other fine you might pay to the government for, you know, if you don't clear the snow off your sidewalk, or if you drive too fast on the highway, you get a traffic ticket. If you don't provide for you and your family to have health care insurance, if you can afford it, you're going to have to pay this fine. And they said that's akin to a tax. And I know that's a, you know, some Republicans act as if this is a sin word or something, but, you know, we don't get a free lunch, and we have to pay for our way through life. And for those who can afford it, they should provide health care insurance, and if they don't, they will have to pay this fine.
Who will not be covered when the law is fully implemented?
Well, there will be, I was just in Boston on last Friday, where this identical program was put in place, interestingly enough, by Governor Romney, and 98% of the people in the state of Massachusetts have coverage. 100% of the kids are covered. The reality here is that there will be, you know, maybe an outlier, just like there's someone who will speed on a highway or not put their recycling items in a recycling bin. There'll be some people who will try to evade the law. But most Americans are law-abiding citizens, and the laws now require you to have health care insurance. And as you know, most Americans have health care insurance. And we have provisions for those who can't afford it. What we have up until this moment is we had groups of people who, you know, would just wait until they would have to go to the emergency room and have you and me pay for it through our health care premiums.
Well, on that note, Jeff Neerhoff asks on Twitter, how are the 11 million illegal immigrants in this country affected by the passage of this bill? How will they get health care?
Well, if you're not a citizen of the country and with proper authority to be here, you're not covered by this law at all. And you know, the reality is that that's unfortunate, because we really want to have coverage for anyone who is in our country. Because, for instance, if someone has a contagious disease and it's not diagnosed, and they're sitting next to your loved one on a transit vehicle, a train or something, it's a real problem. So I know that there's a lot of people who want to pretend as though other people are not, you know, not worthy. But the reality is that for this law, because of the political circumstances, there's no coverage for them. And so, you know, they have to go somewhere else and peddle some other myth for the moment.
Last question for me before calls. I looked about news coverage of you on the internet and found these two articles. Representative Fattah announces $3.1 million for neuroscience and other research at University City institutions in Philadelphia. And a similar headline, Representative Fattah announces $9.2 million in grants to Penn for healthcare innovation, keying $12.2 million in savings. Where is this money coming from?
Well, these are federal grants that are competitively awarded through the National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation. I'm one of the lead members on the science-related appropriations. I authored a major proposal that the President signed into law in December that creates a neuroscience collaboration across the federal government, working on brain diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, disorders like autism, bipolar diseases. It is a major initiative of the federal government, headquartered in the White House of Science. One day, I'd love to come in and talk about it. We have tens of millions of Americans who are afflicted and affected by brain diseases and disorders. Many of our soldiers who've been injured have traumatic brain injuries. So I've been leading an effort in the Congress that has led to a major legislative success, and there we have a collaboration about all of the federal agencies, from the National Institute of Health, National Science Foundation, the Food and Drug Administration, the Department of Defense, and rushing forward on focusing on how we make real progress on brain illness, and also how we understand the healthy brain, how we can do more. In terms
the resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 717, I call up the conference report on the bill H.R. 4348 to authorize funds for federal aid highways, highway safety programs, and transit programs, and for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentleman is correct. The House will be in order. Gentleman may proceed. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 4348, an act to provide an extension of federal aid highway, highway safety, motor carrier safety, transit, and other programs funded out of the Highway Trust Fund pending enactment of a multi-year law reauthorizing such programs and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the House Resolution 717, the conference report is considered read. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mica, and the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Rahal, each will control 30 minutes. The chair will now recognize the gentleman from Florida.
First, Mr. Speaker, I would ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on the conference report to accompany H.R. 4348.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Speaker and my colleagues...
The gentleman will suspend. Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, it has indeed been a very bumpy road to get to this point where we could pass a transportation bill. First, I have to thank my colleagues. I want to particularly thank the Speaker of the House of Representatives who stuck by me, who insisted that we pass this legislation, that we work together in the best interest of the people of the United States, particularly in a time when people have lost their jobs, particularly at a time when the construction industry is at its lowest point in probably our history, and particularly at a time when it's important for Congress to act, not just to talk about problems that we have, but to get things done in the best interest of the people of the United States. So I want to thank first the Speaker. I want to thank my colleagues who've participated. I want to thank staff who's been up almost nonstop for 2 weeks, day and night, trying to help wrap this up. I'm not particularly pleased with some of the twists and turns. Let me say, first of all, my predecessor, Mr. Oberstar, I regret that he was not able to achieve what we've achieved. He was undermined, unfortunately, by this administration to pass a bill. I tried to help him to pass a bill, not for partisan reasons or political reasons, but again for the people that we represent and trying to get this country, the economy, moving forward. They had to pass 6 extensions. I was forced to pass 3, but we're here today because so many people work so hard. One of the funniest things that happened to me during the passage of this bill, and you know that people have been kind of tough on me during this process, is I came to the floor one morning after a particularly tough time, and a staffer looked at me and he said, "Mr. Mica," he says, "your shirt is awfully clean." He looked at my shirt, opened my coat, and he said, "Your shirt is awfully clean." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "For someone that's been thrown under the bus so many times, you don't have many tire tracks on you." One of the light moments in this process But you know what you have to do is when they throw you under the bus, you get up, you right yourself, you dust yourself off, and then you gain even more determination to win and get the job done. And that's what we're doing today. And today we're passing a bill, again, that the other side couldn't pass when they had complete control of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. We're passing today, ironically, in the week that they passed the first transportation bill in Congress, and it was signed into law back in June of 1956. This isn't the bill that exactly I would like, but this is a bill that, first of all, has the most historic reforms in the federal participation in transportation programs in its history since its adoption back in 1956. Those reforms are included in dramatic change and consolidation of some of the programs that mushroom, government mushrooms. Nobody does anything about bringing and reining in the size of government. This bill does something about that. This bill takes the plea that we heard from Beckley, West Virginia to the West Coast, from sea to shining sea, in an unprecedented number of hearings across the country, and people said the whole paperwork, process, red tape of federal government involved in transportation projects has to be changed, and we change it here for the first time historically, dramatically reducing the time that it takes to permit and go forward with a project, dramatically reducing the cost, dramatically reducing the mandates, increasing the flexibility for local government, so we have a streamlining process unprecedented. Now, this wasn't easy to do because my previous chairman, and one of them at least is here, they had a little thing called earmarks. In fact, the last bill had 6,300 earmarks. And you see my hands are behind my back. I don't have them tied, but I didn't have the ability to pass out earmarks and the other little goodies in this bill. Instead, we had to focus on policy, and this is good policy. This is good policy for transportation's safety. This is a good policy for, again, reforms, and it's good policy for moving forward projects across the country and putting people to work. Shovel-ready will no longer be a joke. The administration, when they tried with stimulus dollars to throw that money out there, 35% was left in the federal treasuries 2.5 years after we passed the bill, because shovel-ready even made the president and others cringe at the thought of how federal red tape and paperwork stops projects and their progress. So those are some of the reforms. I'm grateful again for all that helped us move in a positive bipartisan direction. Want to compliment Senator Boxer. She and I are probably like oil and water when it comes to political philosophy. But we join together, like everyone should do, to get the people's work done and to get people working in the United States and pass this long overdue legislation. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Rahal, is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
As with the health care in the aftermath of yesterday's landmark Supreme Court decision, it's now time to move forward and put the divisiveness which has plagued the enactment of a surface transportation reauthorization bill for the first time in decades behind us and coalesce in support of the pending conference agreement. This bill makes a sound investment in America. 56 years ago, a Democratic Congress and a Republican president came together, and on this day in 1956, President Dwight Eisenhower signed into law the Federal Aid to Highway Act, which established the interstate system of highways. This historic piece of legislation created a transportation system in this country that awed the world. Yet in recent decades, our roads, bridges, trains, and transit systems have slipped into decline because we have failed to make the necessary investments to improve the condition and performance of this network. The pending legislation will not completely reverse the course of this decline, but at the very least states will see no reduction in the infrastructure investment funding that they desperately need to tackle crumbling roadways, deficient bridges, and to secure rail highway grade crossings. The states and transportation contractors will have the ability to count on a stable source of funding through fiscal year 2014, sustaining and creating jobs and enhancing the mobility and safety of American motorists. Critical investments in transit will continue, reducing traffic congestion, and alternative means of transportation will continue to be a valued enterprise in which to invest, increasing the quality of life and the health of the American people. Now, to be sure, Mr. Speaker, there are some glaring shortcomings. The transit privatization provisions threaten service, not enhance it. The environmental streamlining provisions shortchange public input and could very well lead to greater delays in project delivery. The Buy American provision is lethargic compared to the bold and decisive strokes that I had advocated. The mandate to install black boxes on commercial motor vehicles will come at great cost to struggling independent business people without any proven safety benefits. And there is an ill-advised provision that has no business in this legislation, which harms our maritime industry by weakening our cargo preference laws. When all is said and done, though, this bill is what it is, as is with so much legislation in this body. This conference agreement, this one in particular, means jobs. And it means that we will not have further layoffs. It means that we will continue to improve our economy. And when all is said and done, I will choose to vote for American jobs any day. Mr. Speaker, before reserving the balance of my time, I ask unanimous consent that time on this side be managed by Mr. DeFazio of Oregon temporarily.
Without objection.
And I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Oregon will control the time. The gentleman from...
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee who chairs and does a wonderful job of the highway, chairing and leading the highway subcommittee, Mr. Duncan, the gentleman from Tennessee.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the conference report on H.R. 4348, the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill of 2012. And I first want to salute Chairman Mica for the tremendous job he has done in bringing this bill to the floor today. And I want to thank him for allowing me to serve as chairman of the Highways and Transit Subcommittee. This monumental reform package will be considered the signature jobs bill of the 112th Congress, and I'm pleased to have been a conferee on the negotiations of the conference report. States will have over 2 years of funding certainty with no tax increases. By providing long-term funding stability to states, major projects will be able to move forward to help create jobs and make much-needed repairs to our nation's critical transportation infrastructure. These are jobs, Mr. Speaker, that will not be outsourced to China or elsewhere. Traffic congestion costs the U.S. economy approximately over $100 billion a year. With congestion expected to increase over the next decade and beyond, the job creation from this bill will help reduce congestion costs and boost the economy. This conference report contains no earmarks. Funding is distributed based on formulas which go directly to state departments of transportation, which will prioritize the highway and transit projects that are the most needed and most important in their state. The number of federal programs has been greatly reduced, which will give the states greater flexibility on how they spend their limited federal resources. The conference report doubles the funding for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, which gives states resources for improvements to dangerous and unsafe sections on our nation's highways and will save lives. A more robust Highway Safety Improvement Program will help continue the downward trend of highway fatalities and serious injuries that we have seen in the last several years. The House included several streamlining provisions that will have a dramatic effect on the project delivery process. Federal agencies will be given deadlines to review burdensome and environmental requirements and requires concurrent instead of consecutive project reviews. Projects that are in the footprint of an existing highway will not be required to go through the process. According to the last study of the Federal Highway Administration, the project delivery process can take up to 15 years from conception to completion. This is government at its worst. These reforms will help cut project delivery times in half and save taxpayers a great deal of money. The Senate bill also includes a wide spectrum of additional government bureaucracy and red tape for small business that would have severely hurt their bottom line. We were successful in removing most of these overburdensome regulations. This, Madam Speaker, is the most conservative highway bill ever both from a fiscal standpoint and from a policy standpoint. And I would especially like to praise the staff that has worked so hard, led by Jim Timon, one of the most competent and capable people this Congress has ever had from a staff standpoint. I look forward to passing this reform bill and putting Americans back to work, and I urge passage of this bill.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from Oregon.
I yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
This is 27 months of certainty for the states.